Well, hey, hello everybody. I'm David Morris. I am the publisher for Lake Drive Books, where we publish books that help you heal, grow, and discover. That's our little tagline for the two of you today,
Love that.
and for anyone watching. I am joined by author Marla Taviano, author of Jaded, this very beautiful green book, A Poetic Reckoning with White Evangelical Christian Indoctrination. That
That's a
says a lot
mouthful.
right there. And then our very special guest today is Kim Ramón, who is the audiobook narrator of this book of poetry. I mean, it's just really something. How about that? An audiobook of poetry on the topic
How
of
about that?
white evangelical Christian indoctrination. That is like super cool. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, this is meant for audiobook listeners, anyone just interested in hearing about what people think about Jaded. Maybe Marla, I think most people are going to kind of know about the book by the time they get to this video. Tell us, why don't we start with you, Marla? What are your hopes for an audiobook or just Jaded in general? What would you respond to with that?
Well, I want everyone in the whole world to read it. So that's a big dream. And if they don't like to read, I would love for them to listen. And that's why I'm super excited that there is now going to be an audiobook version, because I've written a lot of books and that's a whole other story. But this is the very first time that one of my books, to my knowledge, is going to be an audio book.
Nice.
And it's fabulous. I have not listened to it all the way through. I've just listened to bits and pieces as Kim has sent them to us to check it out and make sure everything is how we want it. And it is so freaking good. Like it's so fun. I can't wait. I listen to audiobooks on the elliptical only because I don't drive anywhere. My kids run all my errands. They do all the chores. I'm writing and editing all day. So that's the time I listen to audiobooks. And I can't wait to be on the elliptical and listen to Kim read my poems all the way through. It's going to be so fun. And a lot of people have told me I'm waiting for the audiobook before I get jaded. So
Nice.
now is your time.
No pressure.
So Kim, you are a professional audio narrator, among other things.
Yep.
Hearkening from Canada, don't you know?
I don't, yeah, no. Very Minnesotan. No, we don't talk like that.
Oh, that's Minnesota. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm from New Jersey.
No, it works though. It just makes, yeah, no. But that's the American equivalent. It's like a very, because it's a pure vowels kind of thing. I recently, I took a course on how to speak American because it's legitimate and in the most honest, like, kind way to say that as an actor. They exist
There's
for
no
Canadians.
kind way to say it. Yeah.
Well, it's a general American accent. So, being a Canadian going into acting, and even with audiobooks too, people want a very sometimes they want a very generic American sound. It's not just North American, not Canadian. They do specific. So I learned there are differences. I get caught on about.
Well, and even I noticed at least one word was pronounced differently while we're on this topic.
Yeah.
And it surprised me. I thought, well, that can't be the way they say it in Canada, but you really do say, in the United States, we say magi, but in Canada, it's Maggie. Am I right? I looked it up. That's you were saying it right for Canada.
And that's interesting, and that's the thing, and I wouldn't have considered, like, there's all these colloquialisms, and like even like anywhere in the States too, there's going to be tiny differences, the same with Canada, but yeah, there are these subtle things that are just going to pop out, and that's why too I need it, because Marla, you're American. When something is your work is read, you're like, it's gonna make more sense if it's read without that Canadian accent. Another thing is like bag, bag, little things like that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the word magi in jaded?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't write that word. What? Okay, I'll figure that out
All right.
later. Because
Let's
I was
see
just
here.
like, why are you bringing up some random word, David? And so that must have been, you
Why
must
did
have
Kim
listened
say
to that
that?
one. Okay, all right. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
gonna have to do
cool.
a search on that document.
Yeah.
That's the page. That's the
You-
poem.
Yeah.
You obviously had something very scintillating to say about it, Marla, too.
I
Yeah.
apparently no, people get on me all the time because they're like, you know that poem, and they'll say the title and then blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know which poem that is. I also don't know where it is, and I don't remember writing it. So,
And isn't that
um,
that funny? Yeah, you'd think it's like somehow your listeners they know and they're like, oh, they want to gush about like a certain thing, and it's like they don't know my
yeah,
stuff as well as you do.
it's a true story. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
I
probably
believe
don't know it as well as you do now, Kim.
it. It's fresher for one thing.
Yeah, magi.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, yeah. I did notice there were cute little Canadian thing going on, and it's totally cool with me. Like, people know that you're not me. I mean, they might not all know that as they're listening.
Right.
But I didn't choose you because you sounded just like me. I chose you because you were really cool and really passionate and really excited about my book. And I don't know if we talked to you about this, but David and I did David and I did a Zoom call, and we shared it online, talking about the audiobook and how we chose the narrator. And there were how many, like 50
Yeah.
some people auditioned.
A lot of
And then
auditions.
David kindly and generously went through them and weeded out all the ones that he was fairly sure that I would not want. And he came up with, I think, 10 or 12 that he gave to me. And then I played them for my kids. And one of my kids just had all kinds of things to say about some of it. It was really funny. But
They're honest.
we
Yeah.
both, David and I both were like, yeah, we like him. We like him a lot. So
Yay!
yeah.
That's cool. It's cool to hear that kind of thing because it's like you put it out, you put your audition out into the ether, and you never know how many people. That's the thing with ACX. You don't know how many people audition. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing. That's
So,
cool. And
so Kim,
You're welcome.
you're a professional narrator, but you have theater training. You have acting training. Where did you get your training?
yeah, I actually studied classical music. I'm a vocalist, so I studied like
Vocals.
opera, that kind of thing. My roots before that were all in theater. I went to an art school where I was a singer, but it was all about like the stage and community theater, and then going into my B-Muse program, Bachelor of Music Honor Specialization Voice Performance. Got that under my belt, graduated, and thought like, okay, I'm near Toronto. I guess I gotta like, I want to sing, I want to act, I want to do voiceover. This one's the least like anything I've done before. Let's just jump into voiceover. And it led me to producing and narrating audiobooks. That's the cool thing about ACX is the narrators are the producers. So it's just a whole bag of tricks you put under your belt, and then it just it betters everything else you do with voiceover, because you get, like in theater, you have no idea what like the stage manager is doing or the technicians, that sort of thing. Because I loved theater so much, I did a co-op as a technician when I was in high school because I wanted to learn all the things. So doing audiobooks is really cool because it makes me so aware of like, oh gosh, being an editor, like why'd I do so many takes for myself? Now I have to edit this. That sort of thing. So it's I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. And I so enjoyed this book. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that y'all chose me to narrate and produce it. I learned so much of it I was like, heck yes, I'm glad you said that. Other stuff I was like mind blown. It's yeah, I think everyone ought to read or listen to this book. There's so much in there. Thank you for sharing your humility and like, yeah, come on people, just be humble and listen to people. If you're not a part of a certain group and they're telling you something, just listen. check yourself and move forward, pivot, learn, grow. I love this book. Everyone read it, listen to it.
This is amazing. Thank you. Awesome. I
was a-
want to ask, you
Go
have a
ahead.
question?
Go
Dave?
ahead.
I have a question. Okay. So a lot of people have told me, Kim, they're like, why aren't you reading your own audiobook? We want you to read it. And I mostly said, and what I meant by that is I don't know enough about it. I don't know what I'm doing. And to me, it seemed like this great, big, giant thing that I could not fit on my plate. And why not hand it off to someone awesome? They do that for a living. There you go. I am 100% thrilled with my decision to give that over to you. But can you explain a little bit what I'm wanting specifically is I want you to tell people how hard it is and so that they know, oh, you were right, Marla, you really shouldn't have gone to all that trouble. You should have let Kim do it. So like, what can you explain what that even like looks like? And I know it took you forever because it was such a big deal. And like you said, the American English versus the Canadian English and all these names I had in there, and I didn't even know about magi.
There's a lot of details for sure.
So what was that like for you?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I can't even pull up the amount of hours I spent on this guy because I clocked it all. While I'm doing that with an audiobook, the whole thing, that typically your breakdown is you read it, you look for those spots where there's weird to you, like magi, pronunciation things. Names are a really big thing. You want to honor people's names for so looking up interviews to hear people say their name, preferably those people say their own name. So sometimes it takes a few interviews and you listen to a few interviews and they say it a little bit differently and you're like, I'm just looking for them to say their name.
Wow.
And then recording and then giving it a listen. So that's like this is like the EQ phase. So you're taking care of all the silences and doing like a noise reduction. You get a noise profile, apply that to everything, so it takes out some of like the clicks and the odd spots, and then and normalize so that it's like all like a higher audio. Yeah, there's a lot of engineering for sure. And some people do a compression. I do a manual compression, which means that instead of just clicking a button, which can result in over compressed audio files, it can sound tinny or weird or just not human. I'll look at certain spots and then do like a normalization. So like if like one poem is quieter in a chapter and then you've got a louder one, I would level up this guy so that it's all even, so that like folks don't get blasted in their ear. And in those moments where it gets really passionate and I get a little loud, making sure those are quieter. But it's interesting because like in whispers versus yells, you can tell it's a whisper or a yell, but it's all this very similar noise, hopefully. And then you're on to the QC phase, which is the quality control. So I give it a whole listen, make sure nothing happened, a cat meowed in the background, or I missed a sentence, that sort of thing. So that's when we pass it off to David to also have like a second pair of ears and on a different set of speakers, be it headphones or on your phone, because people listen in different ways and that's important. They're not listening to the same stuff that I listen to. And then coming back, doing those edits, even if I feel like, oh, that doesn't have the same intent that I wanted, then it's a matter of like, oh, okay, I'll do it again. Or, you know, those moments where I did multiple takes and it's like, which one do you like? So there's a lot of engineering, the mastering. There's a little bit of mastering because I did one effect, which people will be able to hear. I think I know which one you guys know it.
Let's shift to that a little bit. Like you brought your theatrical training into this.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear it. This is a very special audiobook. It was, I mean, just there was the
Super
ups and
special.
there's downs, there was sarcasm, there was power. There was, you didn't
F
you had some
words.
fun.
Yeah.
And we made you cuss a lot. Sorry.
Yes, don't be sorry. I love they're powerful words. Yeah. It can be good. It can be cleansing. There is so much in this book, and that's why too, a book of poetry is something I've never done before, and there is so much more to it. It's not reading, even though you're trying to be like a relatable expert when you're doing e-learning training, that kind of stuff. When you're doing a book of poetry, there is such a range. And my gosh, Marla, it's all in there. And so it was so important for me to honor that. And there's anger and there's sadness and there's such a range. And that's the thing too, without giving anything away. The arc was a pleasant surprise for me because it was also so well written. It was so intuitive. I connected, I think, so well with the pieces that when I was comparing at the end, when I was getting near the end, I was like, oh gosh, this is different. It's not where it started. And am I lacking something? Am I coming across? Is it the marathon that's going on? There's just such a different tone to it. And then later on, you note there is such a different place where the whole book ended up at compared to the beginning. I was like, oh, phew. I was just up on that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
But it was so satisfying to
Yes.
sit in those words and those places and those emotions. So it was just, yeah, it was so wonderfully and pleasingly theatrical. I loved it.
Talk about for a minute the religious part of this a little bit, because I mean, we're all North America. And the whole idea behind this book has to be in your world too. What do you see from your point of view?
For one thing, I am not a super religious person. So getting this lens and this perspective into looking into things was really interesting for me. There were things that you hear about, things you're slightly aware of, even with like the little bit of like my family, that sort of thing with Christianity and religion and that sort of thing, and just shit in the news. There's just stuff you're slightly aware of, and it was just so mind-blowing, the details of the lived experience you had, and it just shed such a light. And yeah, as you're saying, David, with like what's going on in North America and conservatives who are threatened by a pushed agenda of other people, like in the news, how you have drag queens reading storybooks at libraries, and there's people angrily picketing outside of libraries because they're threatened and concerned for their children's well-being, and they're doing it in such an oblivious, angered point of view. How is that? There's the blasphemy.
Yeah.
I don't know if this answers your question.
Yeah, no, we're all in it, and thanks for being sensitive to this book, knowing that why it's important, what Marla's trying to say, and why there's even anger in this book too, is it's getting this emotion out and articulating things and helping people understand what's happening.
Yeah, well, that's just it though. It sheds such a light, and it asks people to check themselves and to know what biases they have. And honestly, Marla, again, the humility you have, white girl learning. Yeah. I'm listening. I'm hearing you as another white girl learning, and also embedded with all the wonderful, brilliant people that I'm now privy of highly intelligent Black writers with all the books that you've listed, and the range of people, not simply Black, but people who are disabled or whatever term they want to refer themselves to. It's just so much of it is in there, and it's just such a great jumping off point, a starting point for folks to be aware of really what's happening, what's going on.
Thank you so much for that. Hey, well, we should wrap up. This has really been great. Marla, is there anything you wanted to ask or offer?
Yes. Okay. Kim, I just love you to death. Like, I absolutely adore you. And this is not part of the plan. Like, we were supposed to talk about you and how great you are and everything. And then you're like flipping it around and saying all this stuff about me and my book. And I like, this is just like my heart is full, and I can't, I'm just so thrilled that it had that impact on you. And then you just swooped right around and then made it come to life. And I don't know, it just feels like this full circle thing of something really, really special. So I just want people to know that they need to listen to this, not just because of my book, but to listen to you and what you did with it. And when you said that you never read a book of poetry before, this is my first one was completely out of the blue too. Like, it's like, hey, I'm 45 years old and I'm going to write a book of poetry. And I did it. And then I wrote another one. So when you were saying like, I'm not sure how to read this, how to come across, me neither. Like, that's another reason I didn't want to read it. I don't know how to read these poems. I don't even know what I would say or what kind of voice or where I would go up and down. So I love that you did it. You did it in your own way. You tried to kind of figure out how would Marla do this, but not knowing that Marla had no idea how she would do it. No. And I think when people read my poetry themselves also, they're bringing themselves to it, and they're seeing things in it that I didn't even see when I wrote it. So it just feels magical. It feels magical and alive. Like, the book is alive. And when you read it, it's alive. When you read it, it's alive. When people listen to you, it's alive. And I'm just so
it's alive.
Well,
thank you.
My pleasure. True honor. Really. I'm so grateful. Thank you for the words. I get people being like, well, why isn't she reading her own? I get it. I get that. And it's also like a whole other thing. You gave the words. You gave us the words.
That's true.
I got your back.
So
one more thing.
Yep.
One more thing. I want everyone to hire Kim to read their audiobook, but also I also want her all to myself. Like, I don't want to share her.
You got me on retainer. Thank you for that.
My daughter designed this cover, and she just designed a book cover for a friend of mine, and I was like, hey, I want you for myself. And so I cannot have Kim all to myself. I cannot have my daughter all to myself. Can't have David all to myself. Have to share. So I will do that. I will share all the wonderful people, but just know that you are wonderful. And if anyone does want Kim to read their audiobook, then get in line. Right?
So people can search on Audible or on Amazon for Kim Ramón. You're reading other books, fiction, I assume. I haven't checked recently.
All sorts of things. Yep, I'm there. I do children's stories with lots of different voices, if that's what you want.
Nice.
And I'm also good with medical terminology and a whole range.
Awesome.
I like the variety, the spice of life. Thanks for that, y'all.
Well, I hope people do look you up. Kim, you have a website?
Yeah, Kim at kimramon.ca. KIM at KIMRAMON. No E, like the Ramones.
Like the Ramones.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you did a brilliant job. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time here. I'm sure people will really enjoy this video. Go check out Marla's book. Go to Amazon right now and you can hear some of Kim's narration. It's really
I didn't know that.
There's a sample. Well, no. Well, by the time this video is out, yes.
All right, got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Marla, for the opportunity and for chatting.